All right, everybody, welcome to Metal Toad Class 7. We left off, we're styling our site here. We've got our header image in, we have a logo, we've got some very basic navigation going on. We added some pictures to our marquee, and we've got our hand nav. So today we're just going to continue and keep styling everything with the goal of eventually having having a new theme started so that when you guys leave here you can start working on your own theme for it. So right off the bat I'm going to take a look. This drop shadow is kind of bugging me here. It's causing some weirdness. So I'm just going to turn it off and see what it looks like. Much better, but we still have a weird cutoff here where it's looks like we're still getting some fade from the image. So I'm going to take a look at the image, make sure I refreshed it. You know, browsers cache everything, so often it requires a hard refresh. Oh, silly me! I'm looking at the server version. That's not going to change no matter how much I try. I'm going to go to my actual local files here. And we'll pull that up. All right. So there we go. I kind of got rid of that fade at the bottom here, and we'll take this drop shadow off of this so we can see. Okay, it's on the header container. Yeah, that'll look a lot better. But I do kind of like how it separates it on the right and left. So rather than having it on this, I'm going to look for a better element. So if I go hover over the main page element, looks like that is the one we want. So I'm going to go back to header container. I'm going to check my line number, main.css 224. I'm going to go there. 224 right there. So I'm going to take this off. And I'm going to go up to our, or go down, I'm sorry, to our custom styles. And let's see, I probably have a main page already. Yep, that looks like it. We're going to play with these colors here in just a little bit. One thing about formatting, there's a couple ways to format. We talked about browser prefixes earlier on in the class. This is required for some older Chrome and Safari browsers. This is required for some Firefox browsers. And this is the normal syntax that will be eventually supported by all browsers. So you can do the standard indentation, but I did want to point out that some people prefer to line the values up. I feel that looks a little better. I guess I'm in the camp that I like this better because, you know, with a multi-selection tool, you can do it all really easily. But, you know, you can do multi-selections within Sublime Text kind of anywhere, so that's not the best argument either. All right, so we'll save that, refresh our page. Now it's over there, and it's wrapping the entire page, which is much better. Not really thrilled with the glow effect. I actually want it to be a shadow, so rather than using this AAA, I'm going to use something dark. And remember, these are RGB values, and lower means less light, higher means more light. Add all light to get white, subtract everything to get black. So I'm going to go 0, 0, 0 for black. And just to kind of speed things up a little bit, I'm going to show you a tool I use. This is called Live Reload. What Live Reload is going to do for us is essentially anytime I make a change to a CSS script or a JavaScript, it's going to reload that CSS or refresh the page if it's the JavaScript. You grab him for a minute. Sorry, dog's being loud.
Will it reload it if you don't make a change?
Why would it do that?
I don't know.
Then no. No. it would only reload if you make a change. It doesn't reload otherwise. So I've added my folder here. It says waiting for browser to connect. I have my little plugin here. I hit that button and nothing happens. Let's see what I did here. So I happen to know that I haven't restarted my browser in forever, so I'm going to go ahead and do that since it's acting a little buggy. Which got rid of our screen share for the other folks, but there was no other folks, so that's not a big deal. So now that this page is refreshed, you can see our black drop shadow. It's definitely a lot more subtle than the white one. I'm wondering if for dramatic effect we should maybe increase it a little bit since this site is all about being gaudy. So what we have here is direction left, direction down. I'm sorry, this is direction left or right. You use negative numbers to go left. Same here, up or down. And this is the spread. So right now it's 5 pixels down and 10 pixel spread. I'm going to go ahead and give it a, I'm going to leave it at 5 pixels, but I'm going to jump this up to 20. And, live reload still not working. Oh well, I'm not going to sweat that. I've had problems with it before, and I'm not going to worry about it. Okay. Refreshing, that's a little bit more noticeable. You can see down here on the right, it looks a little better. I do want to keep it a little subtle, but I want to bump it up a little bit. Instead of just doing the testing back and forth, I'm going to mess with the values of my browser. So even though both of these apply, because this is a WebKit browser, this box shadow is overriding this box shadow. So I'm going to go here. And you can see how this grows. All right, let's take a look at that. 50 pixels. I kind of like the look of that. All right, so we'll stick with that. I'll go back to my code and update that. All right, what's next on our list? Picture title. I decided while I was looking at this earlier that I didn't really want a picture title. I'm just, there's no need for it. So I'm just gonna go ahead and go to our marquee code here and get rid of that stuff. Oops, I should probably start our Hangout too, just in case somebody comes late. Application not responding. It's not good when your browser does that. But I'm going to blame it on the screen recording. I know we also want a section title here too. So we have our section here. We have our marquee there. I want to put it right here. And H1s are usually reserved for page titles. Since this is a single page, I'm going to use an H2. And that stands for heading, in case you're wondering. I believe we called this home. Oops, put my closing mark in the wrong place. There we go. So we'll refresh this. Hopefully we'll get a nice home image. Speedy, speedy. Okay, home. Now, one thing I'm noticing is this big gap here, and I want to get rid of that. The reason I'm seeing that, I think, is because we set a height on that container. We'll find out soon enough. Header container, yes, it has a height. So I'm going to go ahead and just drop that way down. Oops, but I don't want to go so far up that it starts messing up my fade there. So I'm going to go to there, but that still leaves a big gap. So I'm going to do a little trick here, margin bottom, negative 20 pixels. Let's try negative 60. So basically what I'm saying is this box, instead of having a normal margin around the box, the margin actually has a negative value, which allows the things below it to flow up into the actual content of there. So we need some serious padding here. Look at our main container. Go to our section, and I think I'm going to go ahead and do this on the section itself because I want there to be padding on every section. So there's no point in styling each one individually. We'll just do one for section. Padding 40 pixels. All right, take a look at that. Might be a little too much. We'll go with 30. I like 30. You know, again, a lot of this is just playing. I am going to make the top 0 though, so we can keep our spacing. So this right here, the 2 values, remember, if you have 1 value, it applies to all 4 sides. If you have 2 values, the top value applies to the top and bottom, and the second value applies to the left and right. If you have 3, it would be top, left and right, and bottom. 4 is all 4 of them going in a clockwise motion. All right, get rid of my inspector here for a minute. Take a look at the page. Okay, this guy's kind of cut off here. And I'm looking at it, there's an iframe. Oh, we had a section inside of a section. So keep things a little better, I'm gonna go to article on that. Remember, these are semantic elements. It's kind of up to you how they're defined at this point.
Dan, can I ask a question about semantic?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is it just you can create an identifier of your own, and then that's your own element type, and that's what that means?
No, you actually can identify your own elements and really just use anything you want. These were designed to kind of make logical sense out of the content, say if you, not only when you're looking at the code, but when other systems and computers and programs are looking at the code. I'm not saying they will for this, but they may be able to glean a little more out of it if the markup makes more logical sense. Okay, move to article on that. That should help, but I still have to add my section CSS. Don't know why that's not working for me. All right, so now I've got some decent spacing. Oops, I forgot to save my header container negative margin here. I think we could still go a little more. What do you think? Fade off. All right, 866 for the height on that.
You're not actually making that top image smaller, you're just making it more possible for the next image to be in it?
The question was, I'm not actually making that image smaller. I'm just making more space available for other images. Is that how you worded that? I'll just go ahead and explain. I'm actually only modifying the container, and that's actually a background image on that element. So I'm not modifying the size of the image at all. I'm only modifying the container. I did two things. I brought the height up, and I also created a negative margin so that our content can flow into this part of the image that I left blank so that it flows into the page a little better. Does that make sense? No? Yes?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
You could have also recropped the image, right?
The reason I cropped it where I did was to keep this fade effect. If I cropped it here, you'd see the line.
Okay.
And in fact, I can demonstrate that. So if I were to reduce the height of that even more, you'll start to see the actual line. See that? Right, so I brought it just low enough so that you don't see that line. All right, so our marquee's looking okay. This guy's a little weirdly shaped. I'll take a look at him. Now, this stuff is all being served inside of an iframe. And the way that works is if we take a look at our code again, we just have like a little bit of placeholder code. Where are we at? Right here. We have div Facebook comments. So this gets picked up by the JavaScript that we had in for Facebook, where they're right here. This JavaScript is finding this on the page and replacing it with the code you see here, which is an iframe, which is essentially, an iframe is a window to another site. So we're actually loading Facebook, or a tiny portion of it, on this page. So let's take a look at this, see if we can't fix this a little bit. I'm looking up here. I haven't actually played with this widget from Facebook, so I'm not exactly sure how they're doing stuff. But I see a span with a height of 160. I'm not sure why that's happening. So let's see if we can take a look at the code and find out. So I'm seeing a data width 300. I put the dog out. Hopefully he doesn't chew computer cords in the main pit. Data width 300. So I'm gonna take a guess, and I'm gonna copy this attribute and put data height. Just see what happens. Let's go 500. Save that. Give it a refresh. It didn't give a crap that I did that. So let's see what else we can do. Height 160. Iframe widget. Let's take a look at our JavaScript. Do we have any variables in here we can play with? I don't see anything. So we're going to resort to our good old trusty Google. Facebook comment widget height. Getting the height of a Facebook comments widget social plugin. Our good friend Stack Overflow. So this guy said a workaround was to just add a height class. And I prefer not to, I'd prefer if it wasn't being set via JavaScript there. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to override it like they suggested there. Let's take a look at our code again. Facebook widget. See, they've got something right there that is, yeah, it's setting the height explicitly. But let me see if I can change the height of this. So I'm going to make a class FBLTR, which likely stands for left to right. Not all languages are right or left to right. Some are right to left. And we'll add a height. Oops, I probably have to do this in a class so I can try and pick it up when it's doing the JavaScript. I'm skeptical that this will work, but we'll see. Yep, no dice on that. So I'm going to go back to Google because I wasn't happy with that result there. I'm going to hang out with myself. But I'm the first one. Hmm? Is that the hand signal for Loner?
No.
All right, I invited people. Best I can do. If they show up, they show up. All right, go back to our code here. Moving all my windows around. I had a window up here where I was checking Google. Oh, that's what kills my recording. I didn't want to do that. Oh well. I'll just open a new window. Limit the size. Remove white space beneath Facebook comments. I wonder what the Facebook developer page actually says it. Here are the attributes we have, and I do not see one for height. How weird. I'm just going to search on this page. Huh. That is not what we're looking for. That just gives us the number of comments. That's the only one on the page. So, nothing from Facebook developers. Kind of strange. So this is very representative of what I do all day. I find a problem and I try to fix it. So, any ideas? Excessive white space, update, edit 2, 3. Coming from the iframe. Oh, that's no good. He's just setting overflow hidden, which is not a very good solution for us. Okay, well, I'm smarter than Facebook, so I'm just gonna bully it here.
FB canvas set size? Is that what
FB canvas set size? Nice. Hold on a minute. FB canvas set size. That sounds sexy. That's what sex is to a geek, apparently.
Yeah.
All right. Canvas height. Canvas height. App dashboard. I'm not quite sure that this is what we want, but we'll give it a whirl.
Yeah, wait, is that the same as HTML5 canvas, or?
No. See, they have FB right here.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so FB is namespaced so that they're calling their own canvas.
Gotcha.
We won't pass it a height. We'll just set, or we won't pass it a width. We'll just set height to like 500, see if that works. If this doesn't work, we'll just bully it. Lots of errors. So these unsafe JavaScript things are cross-domain scripting warnings, but they're all coming from They're all coming from Facebook there. FB is not defined. So it feels like here they're not actually defining their FB. I think the FB canvas set size is something related to, it's related to something else, not necessarily what we're working on, unfortunately. Okay. A lot of help Google was in this situation. We're going to have to figure it out ourselves. So let's just go ahead and write some jQuery in the console, see if we can figure it out. So I'm going to use a $sign. That signifies I'm looking for using jQuery. And the class we were looking at earlier was FB left to right. CSS. I'm going to do height. I'm not tearing stuff up yet. All right. So that seemed to do what I needed it to do. So that's the line of code I'm going to need there. Let me figure out what size I actually want. I want it to simply match this. That's 385. So we'll just set it to that. All right, refresh our page and see if we fixed it. Interesting. So, a little bit of a problem here. We're going to get to write some more JavaScript. This will be fun. Okay, so I'm not seeing an error here because what happened is our JavaScript ran before this was even loaded, so it didn't see it. So we're going to write a small loop. There might be more efficient ways to do this, but that's how we're going to do it for now. We're going to set a timeout. We're going to call a function. And we'll check every 500 milliseconds, which is every half second. All right, so now we'll write our function check for Facebook. I'm actually going to pass a variable here. It's going to be 1. So that variable is going to represent count. Normally, I try to keep my code concise and leave out as many spaces as possible. But for these purposes, I'm trying to leave spaces so you can see what's going on. So, if that element has a length greater than 0, then do that thing we want to do. Otherwise, we're going to check for FB count plus 1.
You need to fix the FBLTR on the 2 lines up. Yeah, down. You got an FTLTR there instead.
Ah, good catch. Thanks. Right, so what I'm going to do here, if the count is less than, let's see, how long do we want to wait? I'd say 10 seconds is plenty long to wait. So if we take 10 seconds divided by half second, that's 20. So if the count's less than 20, go ahead and check for Facebook, but add 1 to the count. So what we're doing is, let's take the example where Facebook never loads for some reason. We don't want this to just keep firing over and over and over and over again. So we're adding a count. We're checking it if it exists. If it doesn't exist, we check. Sorry, bad syntax here. We check the count number. And if the count's still less than 20, hasn't gotten too excessive, we'll go ahead and run our function again. This is something in programming called a recursive function, meaning that it calls itself. Recursive functions can get kind of tricky, so I definitely encourage you to always include a termination loop, which is what we did here with the count. Okay. So let's give this a whirl. Hopefully I did it right. Okay, it doesn't seem to be working. We'll have to troubleshoot this a little bit. And this might seem like we're getting kind of sidetracked from our styling, but this is absolutely what you'll be going through when you're developing your sites. So I'm going to add something here. Console.log. I checked for FB this many times. So I'm going to write that to our console every time this gets called. And likely, since it's not doing what we want it to do, it's probably going to show up 20 times. Oops, I didn't know what we did already. So when we first called it, we called it with a timeout of 5 seconds. We forgot to set a timeout here. So I'm going to take this right here, replace this, fix my formatting, and change this back to count plus 1. Alright, get rid of that. Ding, 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 ding. There you go. So we didn't even see it at the smaller size, so that's good. Another thing I want to set for the FTL, and I think we can do this just in the CSS because it's not being specified inline, is I'm going to set overflow Y just to auto. And what this means is if the content of this box overflows the dimensions, go ahead and let it scroll. You can do things like overflow hidden, so if it goes out of the container, everything's just cut off. That can definitely be handy in situations. You can also set it to always have a scroll bar if you want to. I tend to use auto, which means it won't have a scroll bar if it fits in there, but it will if it doesn't. Let's add another comment here. You know, this hand's in our way when we're over here. I'm going to do something to fix that. Should we do it with JavaScript? Yeah, let's do it with JavaScript. So we're going to write another function here. Or actually, this won't be a function. This will just be some straight inline code. We're going to say, whenever you go over the element, FB L2R dot hover do this. I don't remember what we called our object.
Hand nav.
Just hand nav, all one word.
Pretty sure.
With the dash.
Yeah, hand nav with the dash in between hand and nav.
And it's a class, so we need our period there. And I'm a really bad speller apparently, and typer. Alright, so in theory, if I did this right, every time we hover over this, it will hide the hand nav. Okay, so let's check our console. It's possible hover isn't even an option. I might have made that up. See, it checked for it this many times. Console logs are very, very valuable. Oh, silly me, I'm looking for an error in CSS. That's not going to do any good. Sorry, Doug's a little friendly there. Still not getting anywhere with that. Let's do some more console logging. I'm gonna get rid of my other one. So notice when it was one thing, I had it all in one line, but as soon as I added two, I reformatted it to make it easier. You hovered. I encourage you to have fun with your console logs, but I also encourage you to keep it clean because it's very easy to let those get back to the production site. So the last thing you want to do is have some sort of cuss word on your client's production site. I've seen it happen. The results weren't pretty. Oh, well, that's interesting. Our other script stopped running. Let's see if we got an error. Object has no method on mouse over. All right, well, you didn't cry when I said hover, right? But it didn't do anything either.
Can you put in a container and give it a higher priority like you did the hand to be?
That's a good point. But I don't. I'm trying to click. See, here's the hand nav right here. If I'm hovering here, this should be firing. So let's see what's going on. There's the iframe right there. Let's try going for Facebook comments.
And if they have anything to do with it also being pushed out to the side, I don't know if it's,
The hand, you mean?
yeah, because if it's being pushed out, then it thinks it's still over there, maybe it doesn't think it's over it. Something like that.
No, it shouldn't be doing that. No, it's. I mean, I'm definitely able to give focus to the Facebook thing here, so that tells me that it's not being covered. Oh my gosh, my friends are gonna laugh at me. No method on mouse over. Oh geez. Apparently I need to look up my jQuery syntax here. Oh, it's just mouse over, not on mouse over. Silly mistakes like this happen enough that we have a name for it. It's called facepalm. Okay, no errors, yet still not doing anything. It's not firing my my console log either. That's a little weird. Let me see if I have some bad code here. Seems to me to be right. Let's try a different class here. There we go. Hovered. So for some reason it wasn't liking that left to right thing. Not sure why at all. Okay, change that to a hover, change that to so what we did there is by using the hover, it automatically undoes whatever we do here. And I use the toggle, which toggles it on and off. We're actually gonna go, we're gonna go a little different. So what did we do to our hand nav to make it come in? We simply added a class to it, active. So what I'm gonna do is in our JS, we're going to toggle class active. That's cool. And actually, I like that enough that I'm going to go ahead and apply that in a bunch of places. Let's see. I think we'll probably need it here. We've got a couple unnamed asides there. Give them a class so we can refer to them. Actually, it occurs to me that all the asides are on the right. Even this one, the Facebook one. So I'm actually just going to change my code to look for asides. Our hand nav. Oops. Looks like our asides don't have any height or width values. Aside class active. Oops, I changed the wrong thing, didn't I? That's better. There we go. That works well. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on. That works pretty well. I'm okay with that. Let's see what happens when we add some more comments. Posty, posty, posty. Now, in theory, we should get a little scroll bar here. Oh, failure again. Okay, let's see what's going wrong here. Okay. Oh, that's right. This is an iframe, so it has its own scrolling thing here. Of course, that didn't change anything. A little test here. Okay, it is scrolling within the window. We're just not getting a scroll bar. So let's see what we need to add here. Now the hand's getting annoying. Looks like it was assigning the overflow hidden via JavaScript. Changing it to auto doesn't seem to be helping. Let's get rid of these guys. I think that might help.
Would it be scroll rather than auto?
Shouldn't be, but we'll give that a whirl. So we're having some issues because we're dealing with an iframe here. What am I going to do instead? Let's try it over here. Certainly didn't like that. There's a scroll bar, and the question is, does it actually scroll? A little bit. It's also scrolling to the side though, and I don't want that. I just want the overflow Y. There we go. Still not scrolling the entire frame though. Huh, oh well. I am going to pass on this for a while. I'm going to use my method of come back to it. Alright, so we've got a whole lot of text here. This is not easy to read at all. Actually, first of all, these headings aren't quite big enough, so I inspect that, make it larger. So now when I go to sleep tonight, I'm going to dream about scroll bars. And when I wake up in the morning, I'll have a solution.
Yeah, that's good.
Big.
Could you use a different header to, you know,
A different what?
like a H3 or?
So H1 is usually the largest.
Okay, so an H2 is.
H2 is usually slightly smaller. But really, you can do whatever you want to them. What I would do if I was working on an enterprise level site is I would have a standard H1, H2, H3, H4, and then I'd style any exceptions however I want using a class. Like I would add a class of dot big headline, and big headline would have a font size of 50, and I could apply that to any H element. It's a way of basically abstracting so you're not confined by your HTML. But since this is a small size, or a small site, I'm just going to go ahead and do the brute force method. Okay. It's all going pretty good. Well, that was interesting. When I scrolled to what? Kind of went too far. And I'm not really thrilled about that. I'd kind of like to have a little space around it. So we've got our anchor tag up here. So I actually need to increase the line height. All right, increase the line height to 50. Now what happens? Much better. Perfect. Okay, so let me remember to go back here. I think I'll take a minute to talk about M units instead of pixels. we have been using pixels for everything on the site so far, but kind of a better practice is to use a unit called M, and an M unit is kind of a throwback from the print era. An M width was actually the width of the letter M in whatever font you were using. But basically how we use it in HTML is we'll set up a base size, like there was a base size set somewhere. And rather than doing like font size 20 for this hand nav to the right, we do something like font size 1.5 M. Oops, not 15 M, that'll be huge. So this will be like 150% of the base font size, which is kind of big. So if we were to go down to 1, we'll find out what the base font size is. Of course, if you're working on a site that you're designing, you should probably know what the base font size is. There are all sorts of theories on what makes a good font size, what a good font size for the web should be. A good print font size is usually around 12 pixels, but the web is really designed to be on larger screens, so even though developers have tended to use similar sizes like 12 pixels, you really should be using something bigger. I mean, right there looking at the hand nav, I can barely see that. So let's go ahead and up that a little since I'm complaining about it right now. There we go, 30 pixels. So that was a brief introduction to M units. Probably not the best one, but.
Is that one of the tools you use when you're doing responsive design? Is the basic?
Yes and no. M's definitely help with accessibility because when somebody changes the font size, oh hey, I'll do that for you guys on the bottom. When somebody changes the font size, normally now when somebody goes, Command plus, it zooms the entire page these days. But back in the day, people could actually change the font size. Let's see, can you not do that in Chrome anymore? Anyway, in Firefox, I know you still have the ability to change the font size of the page. So if you develop your page using entirely M units everywhere, and somebody increases their font size, your entire design will respond to that change. So that's one reason to use it. Another reason to use it is it's a you're setting a base style and you're making small exceptions. So rather than having pixels everywhere, defined everywhere, you have one base, and that's your base. You have different things set up for your different elements, like H elements, and then your exceptions are very minimal and done in M units. There's also something called a rem unit, which is a relative M unit. One reason people went away from using rem or M's is because if you had an M set at your top level that was and then added a M unit to say a section that was 0.8 and then added another M unit to something down there that was 0.8 again, those 0.8s start to compound and it starts to get really tricky to really control the cascading nature of that. Relative M units are always relative to the base font, so they're much easier to use. These days, there's not full browser support for it yet, so unless you're using a preprocessor like Sass, we talked about that. If you're using a preprocessor, you can do cool things like I wrote a function that will take a number like, say, you create your base font size at like, I think it's 68.5%, and that makes 1M equal to 10 pixels. So if I wrote a function in Sass that I can say font size bracket bracket 20, and it'll do the math to figure out the rem unit to put it in a rem unit, but if that isn't, it'll also have a fallback pixel base for anybody who doesn't support that. But since I'm not seeing the pixels in my code, it's much more handier for me. All right, so our headings are looking good. This Facebook thing's gonna bother me tonight. This paragraph is not only really, really hard to read, but it's getting cut off. So rather than 100%, let's try 80. Man, perfect. It's like I've done this before. Font family, I'm gonna go with, I don't normally use serif fonts, but since we're using a pretty heavy Gothic serif there, we'll try that out. Doesn't look too bad. Looking up there, it's fairly readable. I'm pretty okay with the size, I think. I'm gonna go with this. That wasn't too much to do there. So again, I'm gonna pick up my line number, 484. I've copied my styles. Just gonna go right over there and paste them in. Okay. We've got a whole lot of text. Okay, we're missing a header here. So let's add a header for our where section. Oh, I'm sorry. We're at 7 right now, 7 o'clock. So let's go ahead and take a little break, and we'll come back to this. Right, so we're gonna get started again. Still wrestling with my Facebook thing. I will win. We need to add a header here for our where section. Here we are. What? Where? Let's see how this lays out. Got a whole lot of space there. So I think it's because we specified a height here. Yep. And we specified this as the page. One of the pages. Instead of having a height of 500 on here, I'm going to try something a little different. Go height auto.
And does height auto mean that it will fit whatever amount of text is in there?
Yep. Okay, so what I did there was I added height auto to a new class called what. So what is an ID, so it automatically overrides the class. Much higher specificity. Put that right here. Another thing I did is on this class, I added the class of clear both. And the reason I did that is because we're floating elements here. And when I made this height auto, it said, oh, okay, so I've got space here. I'll just float up there. Instead, I'm making every page clear, like that. Add clear there. It looks like I'm gonna need a little margin on this special.
What's the both next to clear mean? Does that just mean both pages or?
Oh, great question. Sorry. So you can float left or you can float right.
So this is clearing both the left and right?
Correct. It's clearing both left and right. We could probably do just clear left because it's floating left. And if we did float right, it wouldn't do anything. But we're going to do both because I'm pretty certain we're going to want all of our pages to be their own thing. So back on our page class, I'm going to add our clear both. All right. For our special class, we're going to need a little bit of padding there. Okay, so one thing we have going on here is you see our section has height 0, and then our article actually has height. So what I'm guessing is, yep, our article is being floated there. And that makes it so when you float something, it takes it out of the flow. So this section, adding the margin, is adding it from the top of this section right there, because that's the only thing that really has height right now. So I'm actually going to get rid of the float on that, and we'll do that by going to our where section. Notice I'm trying to keep all my styles kind of in the same place. Float none.
So you have to expressly tell it to float none? Is that because...
Only because I expressly told it to float in the first place.
Okay, that's what
Right.
I was about to ask, like, because I was assuming that one of the earlier styles was going to override it, so you had to tell it again what to do.
Okay, what article?
Internet is a petulant child.
Shocking. Okay, I put this under where, not what. Hip hop what? All right, that's looking much better. Okay. So we've got a nasty little blue link that you cannot see for nothing down here. Let's see what we can do with that. Ouch. This has no class. See that? That's not good. It's also got an inline style of color, which means it's going to be tough. It's going to be hard, but we can handle it. We'll do ID of where. We're going to call our... So small is a pretty distinct element. I can't say I see it used that much, so we're going to go where small a. And we're going to do font size 30 pixels. Give that a whirl. View large map. I like that. What I don't like is the color of that. It's pretty gross. Unfortunately, since it's inline, I got to do it with jQuery. And since this is being provided by Google, I'm going to put it in our loop too. Actually, I take that back. I'm going to copy our loops here. So I'm going to copy the check for Facebook, because I wouldn't want it to say, oh, Facebook is here, let's run all our things, if Google hadn't shown up yet. Check for map. So up here, I'm just going to copy this. This is our initial. I'm going to use that same selector, where small a. Color needs to be red. And I'm going to take the underline off. Oh. I'll take this back. I've been meaning to do a general. Oops. There we go. That's not what I meant to do. Text decoration, none. But now on a hover, I'm going to do text decoration underline. So now this should, in theory, get rid of this underline, except when I roll over it. And I kind of like that effect because it says hey, yes, click on me. At the same time, I don't think we really need it here. It's not like we're going to have a whole lot of links hanging out in our text that would need to be underlined. So I'm just going to go ahead and remove it because I don't really want to see underlines ever. It's going to town on the bone. All right. So I like that. Now, I do want to see a color change, though. We need some sort of indicator. Some people do things like make it italic when you roll over it. I don't like to do that because it can affect the layout that way. I tend to stick to colors and or drop shadows. Drop shadows are cool. Let's do a drop shadow. Text shadow. And we'll do 2 pixels, 2 pixels, 5 pixel spread, black. I've done this a few times, so I remember that. Now to make it even cooler, we're going to add a transition. So transition all properties, do it over 5 seconds, and use an easing method. See how all those things appeared all of a sudden? I have a key command that runs a program called Prefixer, which checks the class that you're in and says, okay, which of these needs prefixes to work on all browsers? Turns out this one needs them all. All right, so I added that transition to everything. So now every time we make a change, like these go to black here, it will do that. It will also add this text shadow here, but I have to have it defined first. All right, let's take a look at that. My underline came back. That's annoying. So I like this effect. So notice the colors fading and the drop shadows appearing. That's nice. I like that. But our underline is back. I think I accidentally got rid of that. Underline? Where are you coming from? Oops, looks like I didn't overwrite it in the first place. All right. I like that. These guys are still getting underlines, which means I probably told it to do that on purpose. So here's a trick when you're using your inspector. Notice I rolled over this, and I want to check the style of this when it's rolled over. But then I go down here, and I'm no longer rolled over it. You can click this box here and activate the hover on it. It's a great way to test there. There it is. Hey, nav, hover. I put it in myself. What a rube. I'll just comment it out for now. One thing I'm noticing, although I really, really like this drop shadow over here on this guy, it's almost a little too much over here. So I'm going to click that hover again. See if I already have a hand nav hover. I do. It's 482. Anybody remember what I used? Values?
For which one?
For the text shadow? Oh, there it is. 225. So I'm going to keep it the same direction, but I'm just going to make it a lot smaller. Well, 2 pixels smaller. It's all relative, I suppose. And it looks like the black on black's kind of hurting me. So I'm going to change this to, let's see, if 0 is black, let's go 666. The devil's color. There we go. That still looks nice, crisp, sharp, but it's got a cool effect to it. Those guys look good. All right, so driving directions and parking instructions. Let me take a look at these guys here. We've got an aside with just some straight text. So I'm going to edit the HTML here and give it a little more flavor. We'll make these H3s. Semi-important, but not necessarily page headers. Okay, I'm gonna driving directions. Take I-205 to Division. I'm gonna add a break tag. You know what? I'm going to make this a bulleted list. Be warned that some people just hate bulleted lists. I don't know why. Some people really are offended by them. My wife got marked down on a paper because she used bullets. I think there's other issues in that class, though. All right, take I-5 to Division. Go east on Division until 143rd. So many people on the internet are going to know where I live now. Party's going to be crazy this year. Take a left on 143rd. Take a right on my street. Keep it a little ambivalent. All right, driving directions are done. I'm gonna copy these to the parking instructions. Oops, copy those without my UL tag there. And notice I noticed that right away, and the reason I noticed that right away is because I'm using a good text editor, and when I pasted, I saw, wait a minute, the indentation's all off. Why is it so far out? Because I'm missing this tag. I can't stress how important a good text editor is. All right, parking instructions. Don't park. Oops. Jeez. Don't park in front of driveways. Don't park on grass unless it's mine. These are all problems I've had. Sure. All right, don't park in front of driveways, blah, blah, blah. All right. So we've got some instructions now. Now we can style them. Okay. So right off the bat, we have some issues with the hand nav here. I'm gonna see if I can't increase the size of these. That helped a lot. But I'm going to adjust some of the margins. Got some padding going on there. I'm going to override the padding here. Oops. Main aside. I think I just modified every aside. That's not exactly what we want, is it? Actually, I'm okay with that effect. Kind of keeps the Facebook a little more out of the way there. I'm gonna keep it. All right, yay for experimentation. All right, so let me change this width here. It's 250 in my CSS. Okay, what else is going on here? We've got some kind of unnecessary padding here. I'm kind of looking to make these line up if I can. So I'm going to see if I can remove some of the padding off this list here. Looks like there's a margin on top there. If I go margin 0 pixels. I got rid of it, but we've still got some padding under the H3. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to my styles. I'm going to go where? UL, margin 0. Add another one where, let's see what I do, oh, H3. Margin bottom. 5 pixels. Probably still wants something there, so it's not just bumping right up against it. All right, let's take a look at that. Very good. All right. So now we have our images here. Let's go ahead and throw some, before we do that, because that's just kind of tedious work there, rewiring those images. I'll spare you from that. We need to add a header for this section. We'll see how the spacing looks on that, because it's going to be bumping right up against that that view larger map. Oh, nice. I like the spacing there. That works good. So last thing we're going to do, at least for right now, so I'm going to go back to the beginning here. And I'm going to go through my design, see if there's anything I missed. Oh, I missed a lot of things. I missed our little skulls here. This will be a fun one. I'll show you this one. Skull 2. Oh, you know what? I happen to know we already exported that guy, so let's have some fun with this. So we're going to use a pseudo element here. So on our H2s, we're going to add a new style here. I'm going to do before content. Just going to add a period for the content. I'm going to add a background image. I probably called it skull. There we go. There it is. So it looks like it needs to be probably around 50 pixels. Oops, we need to give our H2 a little padding so we can see it. Let's try margin. Oh shoot, you know, I need to position this absolutely. So we're gonna make our H2 the relative. So everything under this H2 is gonna be relative to that H2, including this pseudo element. We'll do position absolute. And we'll do left 0. There we go. It looks like the width is almost fine. There we go, 52. Needs more height. $82. Okay, I'm going to take off the margin left and make that a padding. Okay, I'll need a little more on that. Alright, I'm going to change the line height of this element to be bigger than it is. So that'll help line it up in the center there. See that?
Yeah.
So what I did is I made the line height 80 pixels, and that put it right in the middle. We still have our period though, so we need to add font size 0. There we go. Now we have a pseudo element that is attached to all of our H2s. Fancy. Okay, so let me get my H2 code here. I'm gonna need all of this one. And for the next sucker who comes along, it's kind of funny. I'm showing these tricks to you guys as beginners, but when I first saw this stuff a couple of years ago, it was magical to me. All right, so we've got skulls. I think we're missing some horizontal lines from that design too. I don't know how I feel about the horizontal lines, to tell you the truth, and it doesn't look like they're consistent, only over the what. I'm just gonna stick to the tools in the graveyard and the footer. So let me take a look at our site, see what other images I cut out the other day. Butcher. All right, where should we put the butcher block? I like the idea of it being above and below here. The what section's kind of plain. Here we've got picture, we've got Facebook, here we've got maps, here we've got pictures. We're gonna spruce this up a little bit. And we can also do this with pseudo elements. So what article is a class here? I'm just gonna add position relative. Padding top of 30 pixels. We'll just do top and bottom there.
Hey Dan, for something like that,
Yeah.
where you have like text floating over a background that might make it difficult to read, this is something I've been curious about for a while. Could you make like a box that was, you know, like let's say 75% opaque, that was the same dimensions as your wall of text, to go right underneath it so that like you'd still see a little bit of what was underneath, but have the text display on top of that to make it easier to read?
Like that?
Yeah. Mostly, I was thinking darker, but yeah.
Yes, you can.
Excellent.
How's that? A little better?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll add this background. Keep in mind though that this background will not be interpreted by some older browsers that don't understand the RGBA syntax. This stands for red, green, blue, and alpha. Alpha is the transparency. But I will go ahead and add that. Let's see, we're at what article? But now I need to give it a little padding. We'll go 30 pixels all around. 30 is going to be a little too much, I think. That looks good. No, definitely a good call there. Looks like we may need to bring the width down a little bit, though. Here we go. 77. Okay, and now I was going to do pseudo elements and use some padding to move those around. Now I'm going to have to use some absolute positioning with them and position them like that. So we've got our what article here. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to make a new style in our inspector. I'm going to say after, comma, before. Content, just do the same old period again. Font size to get rid of it. Position is absolute. And we're going to add a background URL. All right, there's our butcher. Okay, it looks like it's adding them both down there. That's fine. So now we've done this for both after and before. We'll go over here, add this. So rather than doing it for both of them, I put them both together, and then I'll just specify the ones that are different. So after is going to be positioned bottom. What do we say, 50 pixels high? So negative 50 pixels from the bottom. Before we'll do top negative 50. Oh, one thing I wanted to point out is in my inspector, I did this relative to my document. But now that I'm in CSS, I need to go up one level and back. I need to do the same thing for my skull too. Notice they're not showing up right now. All right. Save all those? Yeah, we're good. Bunko, what'd I do wrong here? Okay, I'm seeing my bottom and my top. I wonder if I added position relative. There we go. Why are they? If you don't specifically tell articles where to go in your code, sometimes they'll just go wherever. I haven't quite mastered why sometimes absolute positioning puts it, you know, where you want it without any specifying of left or top, and sometimes it doesn't. I just know that it happens. So I'm going to increase the height of these, obviously, so we can get all our knives in there. I like it. I added a butcher room this year to my Halloween party. All right, we'll go 75, nice even number. Which means we're gonna need more space also. To the bottom there. Now you might be looking at this and thinking, oh man, you're overlapping your thing. You're such a moron. But I'm gonna account for that too. Okay, that looks good. Let's ring in those nicely. Okay. It's kind of weird how it ended up the same size as our box. I'd almost say a little creepy. Margin. Alright, top and bottom we'll add 30 pixels maybe? How about that? Aw. Not exactly what I was looking for. So what I want is for this to have a bigger margin. Maybe I should go on the section. Let's do that. Well, I didn't do anything. There we go. $80 looks pretty good. Let's go 85 for a little more room. Cool. So it looks like I did that on the section of the what page. So we'll go to what. Doesn't look like I have what specified. So just for fun, I'm going to use a new selector here. This section doesn't have a class. Let's say I didn't have access to the HTML and I wasn't able to add a class. I could do it like this. What? Child selector section.
What does that do?
What that says is I want only children. Uh-oh. You see that? My knives disappeared. Anybody know why? Anybody remember why? I do. It's because we did not specify our relative item. So right now they're relative to the page, and since they're -50 and -50, they're going off the page. Boom. There we go. I also added left to that. So let's go back here. I think we actually wanted it, the position relative on the article. Hey, I found something we can refactor. Refactor is something you do when you program where you look your code over and you make improvements to make it more concise. You refactor it to make it smaller. So I found something right here. We've got two specifications here for what article. Bam, we just refactored. Tell everybody you know that you refactor now. Okay, we want left 0. All right, let's see if we got this right this time. Dun, dun, dun. Oh, interesting. Do we need to increase the height? Is that what we need to do? I think we increased this. Yep. We said 75, huh? And we increased all our numbers, so I'll do that. if you guys are okay, I'm going to go ahead and update our footer, and then we can probably call it good for the night. We can also stop now if you want. Anybody? Anybody?
Go ahead and update the footer.
All right, we're going to do the footer. Okay, div, section. It's got a footer right here. Boom. I don't actually know if I'm going to put anything in the footer yet. All I know is that I'm going to add this image here. So we've got our footer. I know I really should only have one footer on this page, so I'm going to use footer. You know, best practices, you probably wouldn't want to use straight elements like this. You want to use classes as much as possible, because once you specify something as an element, the only way to override it is to use a class plus an element, which is just more code. So if you can stick to classes all the way around when you're working, you'll be much better off. I bet I called it footer. Now we'll come here, and we probably won't see anything because that footer actually has no height right now. So we'll go find it here. There's our footer. Yep, 0 pixels tall. 500. All right, so it looks like 500 is a little much. We'll just decrease it till we're at the right spot. Ruh-roh.
Keeps on.
Well, that was weird. Okay, it looks like we got some sort of margin going on down here. Let's inspect. Wrapper. Padding on the bottom right there. So what we need to do is add that. And that's at 134. So let me do that really quick. You want to be careful when you're working in the inspector. It's really easy to modify a whole bunch of values and then forget what you modified. So I'd stick to 1 or 2 elements being modified at a time. It's just what I found works for me, though. Your results may vary. Okay. Boom. Wait, didn't we add a footer already? What am I doing here? There we go. All right. Looking freaky. All right. So the only thing I don't like is we've got a little extra space here, and that is due to this having the same kind of fade. So we're just going to add some negative margin to that. Margin top, negative 100 pixels. Boom. All right. And here's our finished product. Well, almost finished. I got to add those pictures. But there you go. So in the course of, I don't know, what did this take us?
8 hours.
8 hours, if that. We made a complete 1-page scrollable site with actually a lot of cool functionality.
Yeah.
So just to give you a heads up on next week, what I plan to do is we are going to look at this site again, and we're going to swap out all the graphics. And we're going to make a button that swaps that out. So go ahead and start thinking about themes. Next week, I'm going to work on a werewolf theme in the class. So we'll have another little pop-up menu somewhere. We'll think of somewhere cool to put it that will say change theme. And you'll hit that, and we can make it change randomly if we want. We can decide what we want to do. We'll make it a forum. And then once I do that, we can actually, I'm going to show you how to do a theme. And the basic idea is we have footer here. So a footer override would be, so we'll copy all our styles, well, all the ones we want to overwrite, and add our class in front of it. And all our JavaScript's going to do is add that class to the page and switch all the styles. So that'll be fun. And then after we've kind of gone through how to do that, I'm going to send you guys home with a little homework to create your own little style sheet. I mean, if you only want to swap out, you know, tombstones, hand, skull, and the header image, I mean, that's only 4 classes to overwrite. So you guys can do that, no problem. All right, well, that wraps us up for Class 7. Thanks, everybody, for coming, and hope to see you next week.